Bem-vindos a mais uma palestra do Interuni, que é o Simpósio de Internacionalização das Universidades e Institutos entre o Brasil, as Américas e a Europa. Lembrando que ele é um patrocínio da FAPESC, a nossa Fundação de Amparo à Ciência, Tecnologia e Inovação do Estado de Santa Catarina. E hoje estamos gravando direto do Colorado, nos Estados Unidos, com o professor Dr. Evert Brown. Dr. Evert Brown, welcome to our Interuni. And you can start and you can self-presentation you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Evert Brown, and I teach unmanned aviation in Colorado. And Colorado is located in the Central Rockies. It is technically part of what they call the Middle Rocky Mountains, which runs from New Mexico all the way up into Canada. Specifically, I live in a valley that is in southern Colorado, right next to the Great Sand Dunes National Park, and it's called the San Luis Valley. And I teach from a place called Alamosa. I actually teach for two colleges. I teach for Trinidad State College and Pueblo Community College, and I teach unmanned aviation for both of them. The place where I live is at an elevation of 7,500 feet, and it is a desert primarily, but it is completely surrounded by mountains and steep river gorges. It is a beautiful place. And the drone program here at in Colorado, we teach 5 classes, and the courses that we teach mostly are one is one that deals with licensing, how to get your pilot's license. There are many laws about how to get a pilot's license in the United States. To fly an unmanned aircraft, you still have to have a type of pilot's license. And so we talk about all of the laws and regulations that go with getting a pilot's license. A second course that we teach is applications of drones and unmanned aviation, and where we talk about all of the different things that a drone can do. And we just touch on some of them. We don't touch on all of them. We follow that with a course on personnel and how pilots make decisions and become responsible pilots. It's part of a piece in the United States. We call it aeronautical decision making, and we talk a lot about how to make decisions, and that is followed by a safety course. The safety course is prepares students to enter industry and to understand things that they need to know to prevent accidents, to mitigate accidents, to mitigate hazards, and just deal with safety issues across the board in aviation. We have a flight course. This is a hands-on course where students learn to fly the drones. They fly both rotary wing drones, and they fly fixed wing drones. So they have experiences both with both platforms. The place that we are flying allows for us to fly both fixed wing and rotary wing drones. And students receive from this program both the book knowledge that they need as well as flight time. And this prepares them for jobs in industry. And maybe they are doing inspections, or maybe they are doing mapping. This gives them a chance to both understand the concepts, but also have flight time experience. We also provide for a way for a unmanned aircraft systems certificate that allows them to go get a job immediately. And many of our students have. It also allows for us to um, attach that those skills in unmanned aviation to an associate's degree that makes that associate's degree more marketable. For example, if a student is interested in agriculture but wants to have skills in drone technology, this is a way to do that. It's the same thing with geography, as well as wildlife and other disciplines that are out there. So we can have a degree that is has additional skills for students to be able to use drones. Um, what we find here is that flying in the San Luis Valley has some interesting problems. We are flying at 7,500 feet, and we have some very cold winters, and we have some very warm or hot summers. The air is rather thin because of the altitude, and that plays some tricks on flying drones. But this, in the end, it gives them lots of experiences of dealing with high altitude flights. We have several projects in the Valley that students who are doing drone studies sometimes become involved with. One is with a wildlife project, an elk study, and I'll show you some um, I'll show you some pictures of what that is looking like. We are also working in agriculture. And we are also developing some new projects that are available for students to become involved with. I'd like to talk a little bit about the elk study that we're doing. Now, elk are large deer that live in our valley, and we find these deer um, in June. They come down from the mountains, and they find nice pastures to live in, and that's where they have their calves. And this study is looking at how these elk are behave in these pastures, and we're looking specifically at how the young cows and calves are doing in these. And so here is a picture of a couple of cows and a couple of calves in this circle here in the middle, and we can see an elk off to the left. And so this is what we take pictures of with drones. And we were flying at about 250 feet above the elk, sometimes a little more, and that we fly at that height so that we don't spook them or scare them. The elk are very sensitive to drones, but we find that if we stay away or high enough in elevation, that the elk aren't bothered. And so we find we've been doing some counts on these. You can see here a small herd of elk, but if we adjust this picture and start to look at images that are not just normal color photographs, but look at thermal images, we can get these elk to stand out more, and we're able to count them better. We're exploring ways to develop the photography and the sampling techniques to better count these elk. as we improve the imagery techniques, we get a better accuracy of the counts of these elk. Um, and these are wild animals. They are not livestock. And so they move around a lot. And we are able to capture where they're spending time and where they are feeding and where they are birthing their calves. Um, we have computer programs, or we're developing computer programs and software that allow us to delineate or differentiate a cow from a calf. And the computers can generate information about the differences. So we can get far more accurate counts than we can from just watching a monitor on a screen or going out in a truck and counting them. Um, and and so in this picture, we see uh, a calf over here, and we have another one in here, and the computer can pick that up and actually count that. Um, and so we have better results, and we can compare those to other results that we get. In this picture, we don't see any calves at all. And so these elk, um, uh, they're managed, being able to be managed on this particular ranch in a far more accurate way. Um, we are developing these techniques to be able to get accurate counts of these elk. And as we look at the thermal images from these photographs, we can figure out, determine the thermal threshold that we need for counting them. This is a work in progress. Okay. And so we are looking at a variety of different techniques to develop methods for counting these elk. Another project that we're working on is in agriculture. We are involved with our, a group that is using drones to spray chemicals. And I'm sure that there are lots of these applications throughout the world. But the United States is just getting into using drones as a way to spray chemicals. I'm going to see if this video works. Here, let me see, and because it was giving me some problems earlier, but if it doesn't, and if it dies on me, forgive me. But this is a drone. It is a large drone. It weighs about 170 pounds, fully loaded, and it is autonomous. The drone will fly a mission. It flies to a point, and then it will lower down to be able to spray. Now this field is just a blank, is just an open field, just for the demonstration for the drone. It's not a crop field that we have here in our valley, and we're looking at using drones to help augment spraying. We can spray pesticides, we can spray herbicides, we can spray fertilizer even. And this particular drone can even distribute seeds so they can plant. And that allows us to access areas that the soils do not really cater well to large heavy tractors, for example. And so this drone is flown by a technician that that readies the drone, prepares the drone for distributing fluids. It has 12 nozzles. I believe this has got 12. Maybe it's 16, and so it is spraying. Right now it's spraying water, and so we don't really get a good view of the mist that it's producing, but it will spray materials on a field, and a drone allows us things to be able to get into smaller areas between trees, between buildings. Maybe it's really conducive to areas like parks and places around buildings or wetlands even. And so this drone is it's autonomous, and you can even program this to spray in orchards between trees. And when it gets to a point where it's used up all of its capacity, it will return to the home point and land, and then the service technician can add more materials or dispensable materials, and then send it back to continue its mission. And so we are seeing more and more of these kinds of applications for drones, as well as mapping tech uses in precision agriculture, those kinds of things. It takes a special kind of person to be able to fly these kinds of drones, somebody that is both interested in agriculture and somebody that is interested in aviation. And so that's why we have programs like ours that allow people to combine the two. As we get more and more into as we get more and more into applications of drones, we see an incredible future for them. And I'm just going to tell a few stories here. There is a company in Kansas that is wanting to come to our valley to open up a medical deliveries service. And what this medical deliveries service would be is for a central hospital. We have a hospital that is our main hospital here in one part of the valley, but we have several outlying clinics that are 20, 30, sometimes more miles away. So if there's an emergency at one of those clinics and we need to deliver a special medicine to that clinic, we can just put it on the drone, and the drone flies it, and it flies straight line of sight to that facility. Somebody comes out, they pick up the drug, and then they can use it immediately. And likewise, we can also have a clinic that is in a remote area, send a blood sample to our main laboratory here in Alamosa, and then they can run the test on that particular sample, and then just publish the results of that medical test directly to the clinic and directly to the patient. It alleviates some of the time lag that getting medicines to people at the right time and getting tests done at the right time, it alleviates some of those. And so we're hoping to get that group of folks into our valley. Another application for drones is in public safety, and there's a huge set of applications for public safety. Back in September, I was online. I was video conferencing with a lady in Austria. She was in Vienna, Austria, and from Vienna, Austria, she was flying a drone in Houston, Texas, and the drone in Houston, Texas took off, and she flew it from Austria, and the drone went to a house and circled around the house, and it was as if there was an emergency, or if somebody had called in for asking for the police, that they could send and deploy the drone there first, and that would allow for the drone to have some information before the police officers actually arrived on scene. So that's one application that is in development, and I think the United States is not the only place that that's happening. That's an application that's worldwide. We see a lot of applications for drones in emergency responses to hurricanes and disasters, those kinds of things. They're able to get into areas quick and provide information to first responders. When our recent hurricane came through Florida, they had a number of drones that were flying around, taking pictures and mapping things and showing first responders where to go. And package deliveries is, of course, a very viable application for drones. I know that Amazon is going to be able to deliver packages in California by the end of this year. I'm not sure where we stand on that, but anyway, it's going to be happening. I know that we're looking in large cities across the world that package deliveries via drone is going to be a very viable possibility. Drones are also used in resource management for managing forests, managing wildlife, managing grasslands, and so resource management is going to be an important one. We also have research opportunities. I know that, for example, there's a company that's out of Denver, and they are developing drones right now to fly on Venus. And what they're looking for is they're looking for a particular gas called phosphine. And this phosphine gas is a byproduct of living things. Okay. And so the hypothesis is that phosphine being present on the planet of Venus might indicate that there was life there at one time. And they're going to be mapping that with a drone that is developed specifically for that purpose. There are business opportunities for individuals looking for entrepreneurial experiences with developing applications in the future. Of course, we've talked about agriculture, and there's huge applications for agriculture. A little known, but kind of an important and kind of a fun one is that in the United States and Korea and some other places, drone soccer is becoming very, very popular among our school groups, as well as racing drones and things like that. You know, the bottom line is that there's a lot of applications, and the challenge that we're facing is that we have to train students now for jobs that have never been created or never been experienced before. I know that some of our students that we've graduated from our programs here in Colorado, some have gone on to open businesses in real estate photography, agricultural consulting. One student last year began a consulting firm for looking at soils. And so anyway, there's just a huge potential for drones across the board for business and industry and even the arts, and you know, taking photographs and as well as the sciences. There's a lot of opportunity, and that's one of the things that we're trying to get into and develop for our programs. Our program is only here. It's only been we've had it for 3 years. But we're seeing some really remarkable successes in our students. I was asked to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing with environmental education. one thing that I was asked specifically to talk about is the environmental education training team. And that's a group that I was involved with. I'm not involved with them anymore. They have kind of gone away. They lost some of their funding, but it was a remarkable experience. Being able to teach with a group of other educators from across the United States. We had educators from throughout the Rocky Mountain region, but also we had educators from the Midwest throughout the United States. And what they did is they came together in up near Yellowstone, up in Wyoming. And one of the things they did is we put on a week-long camp specifically for other educators, for teachers, teachers who would be involved in teaching in the classroom, or teachers that would be involved in maybe giving tours or giving lectures in outdoor settings. And so we taught them about a lot of different techniques and pedagogies that they could use. We introduced them to curricula, or we introduced them to ways to write curricula for their own purposes. But we used curricula that was from Project WET or Project Learning Tree, Wild, and a lot of other organizations that have curriculum out there for outdoor and environmental education purposes. It's important to be able to teach people about our outdoors. One project that I'm very excited about that was what is called the Casper Mountain Science School. And when I was in Casper, Wyoming, Casper, Wyoming is up north of Colorado, and I was up here. What we did is we developed a program. It was a collaboration between the college, the school districts, the grade school teachers, and the community. And we had a program of letting nature teach. And in this project, we had students from a wide variety of areas that would come together and learn at this facility. We had interns from a variety of different areas throughout the United States. We even had interns from New Zealand and interns from Britain. And these folks would come, and they were able to teach grade school kids. So we're using college age students to teach in an outdoor setting. And these interns are actually, they're volunteers, okay? And they were there for about 6 months each. And this was a year-round program. And so they're teaching in August, and they're teaching in October and December. They're teaching in January and February and March and April, and even into May. We teach a number of things for these students. And what happens in this particular instance, the classroom would come to our facility. They'd spend about a week with us, and they would learn a lot on their own. They'd learn in a different and new way. Our classes came to our program, and they interacted very differently in an outdoor setting as opposed to what was going on in their classroom. And this posed a lot of opportunities to experience new things for the students. Okay, now we know that learning is a change of behavior. It's a change of skills. It's a change of attitudes, abilities. It's a change in relationships. But these changes are based upon experiences that people have, and being able to evaluate those experiences. And so what Casper Mountain Science School did was offer experiences for youth, but it also added experiences for college students that they couldn't get elsewhere. Okay, certainly we had grade school children in there. We had students that were as young as kindergartners, which might be 5 or 6 years old, up to students that are high school students that are maybe 17 or 18 years old. But we also offered programs for college students. So the college students were also benefiting from that. The college students were those interns. Those were the ones that were able to teach, and by teaching they're able to learn some new things. What we found is that those interns and those college students that were teaching, that would come to us from wherever they called home, what we found is that those students ended up in teaching careers. Many of them would come to us as maybe a biology major or maybe a geology major, and at the end of their program, and they became interested in teaching, and as I tracked them through a number of years, I found that many of them went back to get an education degree, or went back to get a more college credentials to teach in a formal setting like a school. But some of them, many of them, went into teaching at agencies like a like a water district or a conservation district or something of that sort. And some of them became wildlife majors that would be wildlife majors but teachers of wildlife. And so it's changing both these students' trajectory of where they're headed, but and providing them with opportunities to get back and give back to their to nature. And we had a number of things that we taught these kids. A lot about science, a lot about the ecology. We taught a lot of botany, a lot of geology, a lot of animal science. We taught a lot about those through investigations, but we also taught about connections that those students have with the nature of the areas that they're living in and working in. And we also incorporated a service project. Students had to clean their own dishes and wash their own plates, and they had to clean their own rooms. We didn't have custodial help. And so they learned a lot about serving each other, but we also had these projects where we would go out and then maybe provide a service or a cleanup of a community area that's in that vicinity. And what these students are learning about is they're learning about place and their place in the world. Okay, they're learning about themselves, they're learning about who they are, they're learning about their relationships to other people, they're learning about their relationships to the environment. For example, one of the students that I had, I think it's this young boy here in the bottom right here of this picture. One of the things that he did is when we had them a service project where they painted a gazebo, okay, or they painted a structure out in a park someplace. And when he went home, he got his parents and he says, "I want you to come with me." And he took his parents back up to this place that he helped paint. And he showed them, "I did this. I helped paint this shelter." It was a gazebo. It was a place where people can come and picnic. And this is a young man that I am sure that when he grows up or gets older or got older, that he would not be one that is writing graffiti or writing, uh, painting, and vandalizing property. They had a respect for their environment when they left there. Um, you know, we tracked these students for several years afterwards. As many of these students entered into college, we found that about 30% of them ended up going into science, technology, STEM-related projects, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, those kinds of careers. That's what they were registered for when they came back to college, when these grade school kids came back to college. So we're seeing instances where the college students are learning to communicate to youth and communicate to whatever group that we had. They're learning to communicate about their environment. And these students that are the ultimate recipients, these young grade school children, they are receiving an experience that's going to provide an appreciation for their environment. And so we had this individuals being taught by other college students, and it also provided a conduit, as it were, for, hey, I'm a young uh, 8th grade or 9th grade or 10th grade student, and I can start thinking about becoming like my intern instructor, and they can go to college and they see that that's a possibility, and they're developing these relationships with each other, and their potential for becoming a college student. And we focused a lot on games and fun and things like that. This is one of my I think um, inspiring um, uh, activities that I got to participate in for a number of years. I'm not doing this anymore. I now live in Colorado. I've left Wyoming to come down here. I am seeing some similar things with what I teach in now in aviation. Uh, the I'm seeing students come out and say, what would happen if we put this kind of sensor on a drone? Or what would happen if we flew this way? And so they're experimenting with different ways to come up with new ideas, new applications. And it's the same way with the students in Casper Mountain Science School. They got to see their world expand in a lot of different ways. They saw themselves as, hey, I can do this. Now, I'll also say that teaching teaching in outdoor settings is a challenge. Okay, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of buy-in from your administrators. But it's something that's very achievable. And whenever you want to do something new and unique, like drone aviation is new, okay, relatively to higher education. Uh, and as we see these fields expand, we're going to see things that we didn't expect. We're going to see applications for drones that we didn't expect. Just like I saw children see new ways to apply nature to their life. if you are interested in um, uh, coming to a college, I recommend you think about community colleges. In the United States, we have 4-year institutions, we have 2-year institutions, and what 2-year community colleges can do is they can provide skills that provide a way for you um, to get into college with less expense, less um, uh, uh, focus on, I mean, more focus on the discipline that you're interested in. And um, the teachers in community college generally are more focused on uh, um, providing good educational experiences um, than they are worrying about, I've got to write a paper for a scientific publication, or I've got to publish this paper, or go to this conference. Those kinds of things. I think as a general rule that in community colleges and in 2-year institutions, that the teaching is better. And so we find that uh, those opportunities will make for a more solid 4-year experience later on. So individuals coming into community colleges that have these experiences are going to be more successful when they get into a 4-year program. Okay. So the Casper Mountain Science School, it still persists today. It is still going on. And there are opportunities out there that 2-year schools can provide that are really quite amazing and in some ways very cutting edge. Um, and so if you're interested in in uh, in such a educational experience like any of these, whether it's drones or environmental education, my recommendation for you is to write to that institution um, and contact them for how do you tell me about your international programs, tell me about what it's going to cost, tell me about what the living accommodations are, what kind of courses can I take, those types of things. And every community college has unique features that you need to explore. Maybe it is drones, okay, like what we have here in Southern Colorado, or maybe it is environmental education, or maybe it is in nursing, or maybe it is in um, uh, the skilled trades like welding and those kinds of things. Um, maybe it is in traditional programs like uh, arts and sciences and social sciences and those kinds of things. But the bottom line is they provide opportunities for you to learn and grow. I welcome you to look at some of these programs. This is some contact information for the institutions that I work for. Pueblo Community College has a great is developing a great drone program, and it's in concert with what is happening at Trinidad State College. And they have Trinidad has an actual international students webpage that you can go to and find out information about what does it take to get to a school like Trinidad. And I recommend you look at some of these websites. But also, if you just do a simple web search for a place that you're interested in and a topic that you're interested in studying, you can find that information there. It's there. my contact information, if you ever need to get in touch with me, I answer to 2 different emails from 2 different community colleges, and I would welcome any emails if you have any questions. With that, I will stop sharing my screen, and I know that I'm kind of that's been really quick, but thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you, Professor Evert Brown.
Yes.
And we have here a student. The name is Julio Cesar.
Okay.
Julio,
Great.
do you have any question for Professor Evert?
Hi, Professor. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question about the license that you said in the beginning of the presentation, that you need a license to drive the drones.
Yep.
Uh,
Yes, in the United States.
United States, correct. How long does this law exist there, and how does it work?
If to fly a drone in the United States, you need a permit. Now you can get a permit from an organization called the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, and they have a permitting structure that they can use. Now, if you're an international student and you're flying in the United States, you would need to get. I think you would need to check with them about a temporary kind of arrangement. But if you're going to be a permanent U.S. pilot, then you would need a permit. The permit is good for 2 years, and then you simply go online and you take some training, and that training is free, and you can get recertified, I guess. I know that I think in Brazil they have like you have to register the drone and you have to make sure it has insurance, but I don't know that there's a licensing structure there. I don't know. I really just don't know. But yeah, you have to have a permit to fly in the United States. Now, I will tell you, I was looking at some jobs the other day about some drone pilot jobs, and the United States is needing 100,000 new pilots in the next 2 years.
Wow.
Okay, so there's a need here. Many of these pilots are flying for industry. They might be flying for the oil and gas industry. They might be flying for the forest industry, agriculture. They're flying for business, whatever. I know that, for example, I just ran across a job working in a county, which is a local government organization, and they were paying $52 an hour, and I'm going, that's really good.
Really
normal for pay for a pilot is, I think the national average is about $65,000 to $85,000 a year, and so that's pretty good. And right now there is a job. There's a vacuum. There's a need for pilots. So what we focus on in our training is mostly safety and getting people to fly safely so that they're not causing problems with other air traffic that's out there, helicopters and other manned aircraft. We worry about that. It's one of our big concerns. But there's jobs, and I would think that, okay, here's another war story kind of thing. I was sitting at a conference in this fall sometime, and in the conference I was sitting next to a fellow at lunch, and I asked him, so what do you do for what brings you to this conference? What's your job? And he says, I deliver coffee. And I would have never thought about using a drone to deliver coffee. But what he does is he has an office right next to a coffee shop. He has a set of clients that regularly contact him and said, I want a particular coffee. He goes into the coffee shop, picks up the coffee, seals it up in his drone, and sends the drone to that address. The individual takes the coffee out of the drone and goes in and drink it. He sends the drone back home for another load, another delivery. So there's applications that, I have never thought about, and it probably many of us have never thought about using a drone to do those kinds of things. So there's jobs out there, but there's also opportunities to make jobs and make careers and make a way for us to make a living. And this fellow he's in a big city area, and he's obviously making enough money to live there and thrive in that city. So you asked me about, I'm sorry, you asked me about the licensing, but it does not take very much to get a license in the United States.
That's really interesting. Thank you very much.
You bet. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. And Professor Evert, we are really appreciate your presentation.
Sure.
And we would like to join our exchange project. And natural, I look forward to your visit here in Santa Catarina in future.
I would welcome that. I would welcome that a lot. That would be fun. And yeah, I would welcome that a lot. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to talking with you.
All right. So, and we will stay in contact with our emails. Okay. And now, when the record is ready in YouTube, I send you the link for the presentation.
Okay. Thank you. I know I'm going really fast, and I apologize for that. I just get excited about this. So anyway, there's lots of opportunities to share.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Until the next time.
Okay. You have a good day. Okay.
For you too.
You too. Thank you.